Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. With me today is Cameron Williams and Micayla Johnston, here to talk about the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Now, for folks out there who've not heard of the first 24, it's because it's not really a spelling bee. We're talking about a musical put on by the theater department here at Troy University. So first off, thank you both for joining me here today to talk about this fun and interesting musical, and we'll get into some of the reasons why it's interesting here in a second. But first off, just kind of give us an idea of what is the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee?
Well, it is, of course, like you said, a musical, but there are 6 kids and 4 additional kids who we'll talk about later. But there are 6 kids who have come from wherever their regional bees happened at, and they are here for the Putnam County Bee, and all vying to win. And in the sequence of the show, we get to find out who each one of these kids are, their family backgrounds, what makes them tick, and we get to see their victories, and we get to see them lose, and we get to see somebody win.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of individuals who are in the bee, Micayla, you're one of those spellers in the bee. Now, first off, first question, are you a good speller and not on the stage?
Oh my goodness. I used to make B's on my spelling test, so I would say I'm average.
So how does that affect your role then, if you have to be a speller?
Yes, I had to do some research, especially because the words get quite extensive. So we did some research and looked up the definitions of the words that we're spelling to try and remember them as best as we could.
So as part of learning your lines, you have to learn how to spell big words, right? That would seem complicated to me.
Yes, it was quite the challenge. So we have to brush up on them every once in a while before rehearsals, and I'm sure before the show opens as well.
Now, we talk about the interesting element, because you mentioned 6 and 4 more, and there's a really cool element about this, even dating back to its Broadway days, is the fact that this is an audience participation play. Talk about that, and talk about how those other 4 spellers get into the competition.
Okay, well, we have our host, Rona Lisa Peretti, and the vice principal, who's the word pronouncer. And in the sequence of the show, they call up the 6 kids who have been selected to be part of the bee, and then the 4 other kids are volunteers. They're people who we talked to and kind of canvassed our audience before the show. And we pull up 4 people who are just average Joes, just people on campus, or just people who came to see the show, and they get to be part of the production. So they're on stage with us throughout the bee.
That's great. And as an actress, having non-experienced new people, novices on stage with you in this performance, how does that affect your performance in dealing with these people who don't really know what's going on?
Right. It can be quite interesting. We spend a good bit of time in rehearsals making sure that we remember that when we actually have volunteer guests that they're not going to know where to go. So we spend a lot of time in the choreography making sure that we're able to lead them, but it's also so much fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to get to play with someone who just came to watch the show and didn't know that they were going to be called up on stage.
And so if anyone does go to the show, there is that chance, that element that they're going to be on stage.
Right.
But that also adds to the fact that it cannot be the same show on consecutive nights. And there's other elements that kind of add to that as well, right?
Yes. So, of course, it can't be the same show because there's a lot of things that are improv. You never know what the volunteers are going to do. You never know what's going to happen. And we kind of have to roll with that. Also, the show is double cast. So there are 2 separate casts of Spelling Bee. And if you came on 2 separate nights, you would probably see 2 separate sets of performers up there on stage, including the volunteers. So that kind of keeps it new and fresh and exciting every time that we get ready to open the show.
And once again, as a performer, how does that affect? Because obviously you're working with the different cast every night. How does that affect your performance?
Yeah, this is my first time being in a double cast, and it has definitely been a great growing and learning experience for me, being able to work with someone else who is playing the same part as me. And to be able to learn from them. When we're in rehearsals, we watch them block it, and to be able to say, I really liked how she made this choice, and being able to collaborate and work has been a very interesting process.
Well, if someone wants to be a potential contestant, that means buy a ticket for the show. When and where is it going to be, and how can they get tickets?
Okay, so the show is in the Malone Black Box Theater, the theater upstairs we call it. If they would like to get tickets, they can go to troytheater.org
Okay.
or go to the box office over by Barnes & Noble. And if they're interested in being on stage in the show, we have people who will come and canvass the audience
Okay.
before the show, and they will look around and try to find people who are interested in being part of the production for that night.
All right, and the dates one more time?
The dates are November 21st through the 24th.
24th.
All right.
Yes.
Well, here's hoping that some folks get a chance to enjoy a spelling bee and maybe even try to win a spelling bee with you all. And it sounds like a fun and interesting night of entertainment and spelling words. Well, thank you both for joining here today.
Thank
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk.